You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We have a great show for you today. Gloria is here. That's Gloria Steinem, in case you were wondering, to talk about a new adventure that she's about to embark on. And Regine Sawyer is here to talk about women comic book makers and comic strip makers, the world of women and comics. And Andrea Pino is with us to talk about rape on campus and what to do about it, sexual assault, while you're trying to study. But first, we need to go inside the headlines. Now, I know that the world is aghast at the big headline of the past week, which is that, surprise, Donald Trump is the presumptive Republican Party nominee for president. And I'll get to that later on. But this story is one I wanted to lead with because it's deep inside the headlines. And it's impressive. It takes place in India. And it's about India's sacred shrines. In the Nashik district, the priests learned to their horror that a woman somehow had slipped into the holy shrine of Shani Shingnapur temple to pray, and so they immediately began to purify the temple. But the story caught the eye of a 31-year-old activist. Her name is Trumpti Desai. At that point, she had limited her activities primarily to demanding rights for slum dwellers. Good on her. And she is a practicing Hindu. She fasts every Saturday. She was well aware that the Shani temple and many others forbid women to enter the innermost sanctums because women supposedly are unclean because we menstruate or because our presence might disturb the celibate deity and the celibate priests. But something about this frenzied cleaning that they went through after the woman strayed into the temple, this just made her furious. She says, "That was intolerable to me. God does not discriminate between men and women, so why should religion?" Good question. Since that episode last November, she has emerged at the forefront of a growing campaign across India for gender equality in religion. She's been leading bands of women into the holy sanctums of various temples, often in the face of violent assaults by priests that have been recorded on cameras and broadcast on national television. And all this public attention has forced the government in her home state of Maharashtra to enforce a court judgment allowing women into any part of a temple a man can enter. So this week she crossed religious lines to join a peaceful protest with Muslim groups against the exclusion of women from the tomb of the Haji Ali Mosque in Mumbai. This is the most collegiality expressed between Hindus and Muslims in India possibly ever. Her efforts have also shined a bright light on two cases before the Supreme Court, one which challenges the exclusion of women aged 10 to 50 from entering a sacred temple in South India, where she plans to go next month, and she plans to enter. And the other concerns the right of Muslim men to divorce their wives by uttering the word talaq, I divorce you, in Arabic, 3 times. The senior lawyer at the Supreme Court, who is arguing both cases, Indira Jaising, says religion is the final frontier in gender discrimination, and now the challenge is coming from the heart of these communities. Yay! The Indian Constitution forbids discrimination, so women have generally received support from the courts, but they face tough resistance from the male hierarchies that are traditional and that translate these victories into actual rights. This is where Desai comes in. Desai grew up with a single mom who taught her to defend herself. The father left home for an ashram when she was tiny. As an adult, she became a leader in an anti-corruption protest against a local bank, and then in 2010 formed an organization called the Bhumata Brigade, or Mother Earth Brigade, to take on a range of issues. After reading about the episode of the Shani Temple, she raised the issue with her Bhumata group, and they immediately supported the idea of a campaign to enter the sacred sacred sanctums of temples. So they drive all over the country. And when she went to the Trimbakeshwar temple, which is supposedly an exceedingly holy place, and when she emerged, she said to the group of journalists and police officers, "I felt the pure joy of being close to God. That force directly empowers you. That's why women must get inside." I think Trupti Desai qualifies as my feminist secular saint. And now it's time for my first guest. Gloria Steinem, well, if I were to do a biographical sketch of her, we wouldn't have time for anything else in this show. So I'll suffice it to say that she's my friend of 40 years, or then some counting, and a colleague and a sister, and kind of, you might just say, a feminist activist. Here's Gloria. Gloria, my dear, welcome back to the program.
I'm so glad to be back.
Oh, well, you're having new adventures, which is very exciting. And
yes, I thought life would get simpler with age, but it seems to be cumulative.
Oh, you silly girl. Simpler. You thought simpler. Ha, ha, ha. Pause for hilarious laughter. No, I think it gets simpler and deeper at the same time, and as it turns more complex. Whatever. But this new adventure is very exciting, and people can share in it. Tell us about the series Woman.
Mm-hmm. Every project has a story, like a person.
Yeah.
And this started at a Google camp, which was held in Sicily, a kind of festival of ideas. It was maybe 300 people. And Shane Smith, who is the inventor or the co-inventor of Vice, was there. And I was, you won't be surprised to hear, talking about violence against females nationwide and the fact that it was now so extreme with the combination of son surplus and daughter deficit and domestic violence here and FGM and child marriage and everything that we know, that now there are fewer females on this earth than males.
For the first time.
He was very, very struck by that. I mean, he has an image of being a kind of super guy's guy,
Oh dear.
And he has a heart.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he has two little girls, and he cries.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's available as a human being.
And having daughters accounts for the consciousness.
It does, but there are a lot of. He says that, but I said to him, I've spoken to a lot of men with daughters who didn't respond at all. It still takes a quality of heart to overcome barriers of sex and geography and race and identify. So when Amy Richards and I came back to New York, we met with him, and they were just on the beginning of constructing Viceland, which is a more woman-oriented set of programs.
We should pause for a moment because not everybody listening might know what Vice is. So
Vice is a.
I mean, other than the generic name.
It's a mega media outfit that started as a magazine in Canada, and now has an ability to be on the ground with cameras and crew pretty much anywhere in the world in 8 hours, and is sitting in Brooklyn in a huge old factory, are rooms full of hundreds and hundreds of people editing tape. It's a very immediate kind of experience, and it is the CNN of everybody under 30 worldwide. I mean, it's now just launching in China and other parts of Asia, and it's enormous actually, and alarmingly spontaneous. You know what I mean? Because they just decide to do something and they do it. But the result of this is that they also have worked with a lot of women correspondents on the ground who themselves have international experience, and so they were able to pick 8 women who would go to explore the theme of each of these documentaries on the ground and ask questions and be surrogates for the viewer. So the theme of this is woman, be a witness. Be a witness and hopefully find some way you can fit into your life of also helping, making a difference.
And you are the anchor voice that we
and
trust.
I am sitting in the studio. I am sitting in the studio, aside from backstage work, introducing each episode and leading out of each episode into activist listings and books and further. Right. So the first one is in Zambia. The first one is in the Congo, the DRC.
Right.
And it is about, as we know, the epidemic of sexual assaults in the DRC.
Right.
And we see Dr. Dennis Mukwege, who has created a hospital there and invented treatments and surgery, and also supports villages and kids in school, because too often the women and their kids, often resulting from rape, are not welcomed back into their own families.
Communities, yeah.
So, we see the reality of the of the results of King Leopold's ghost, which, this was the center of colonial violence, even more so than other colonial violence, and is still inheriting the what we saw and what we read in Heart of Darkness and thought was fiction, but in fact is really true.
Right.
And then it was to get ivory and various minerals. Now it's a particular mineral that we need for computers, and that is the source of the wealth. But the point of it really is that the woman correspondent is asking questions. I must say, it's like a new kind of journalism, because the questions don't dictate the answer. They do their objective best, but they also are human beings registering what they hear and what they see.
Wow, that's refreshing.
Yeah, no, it's very. I'm very impressed with them. Anyway, so the DRC is the first one. Then there is child marriage in Zambia, where you see you follow the wedding preparations of a particular young girl who wants to stay in school and won't be allowed to, and talk to a woman minister in the government who well understands what this is costing the country. And I must say, at the end, there's a wonderful image of women on bikes riding along, shouting feminist slogans, which gives you hope. So each one is a world, and it is really, I think, the closest I've ever seen to actually being there.
Wow. And how many of them are there?
There are 8.
And each one is how long?
An hour, and there's also, we certainly didn't want to exclude the violence on our own North American continent.
I was just going to ask that, yeah.
Yeah, so there is also one which looks at the disappearance of Native Canadian women and the, lack of attention.
Right.
And everything we know is just true in the U.S. too, that women in Indian country are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Partly because the so-called police force that is on the reservation can't arrest non-Indian people. And there is another show about women in prison in this country.
Good.
Since I hope and believe we're at a kind of tipping point in understanding the netherworld that has been created here. It is women in prison, who, of course, number fewer than men in prison, but have been increasing in numbers at a far, far greater rate, largely because of the drug laws.
Right.
And the price of women with kids and everything we know about the particular social impact of putting women in prison.
Wow. So this is a very impressive adventure. Shall when it launches and how people can be sure they see it.
Well, they should just go online to Vice or Viceland, and you'll see all of the scheduling and so on, which is different in different places.
Okay,
right?
You can access it online, and you can access it also. I think it airs through Arts A&E channel.
Yes, that's right. Viceland, which is a more woman-oriented programming than Vice per se.
Okay.
Is on A&E.
Okay.
And I must say, we were looking for a slogan, so finally we decided to explain that we were putting the V in Vice.
as in for victory and vagina?
Yes,
right. Of course. and very good as well.
And vote.
And vote, yes. Take a minute and say something about the election.
Well, here is my most cheerful take.
Go for it.
Because I think we can use cheerful
take. You bet.
I mean, clearly Trump is going to be the Republican candidate, and that is an enormous danger and downside because he appeals to and represents the worst that this country has to offer and the most divisive.
Yes, he does.
However, it's also true that he came up without the help of the Koch brothers or the 8,000 fundamentalist Baptist churches that deliver votes in the primaries, or the usual structures that have taken over what you and I remember as the old centrist Republican Party that supported the Equal Rights Amendment and supported reproductive freedom in many cases, and so it's possible that the destruction of all those forces could allow centrist Republicans, and especially Republican women who have no party anymore,
that's right,
to come back and retake the party from the bottom up.
That's a very positive spin hope on it.
Yes, well, it needs to be done. Whether or not it will be done is another question.
Right.
But the re-democratization of the Republican Party, plus paying more attention to state legislatures, seem to me the two political imperatives in the long term.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And that it's time, people who have been chortling about it, it's time to take it very seriously.
Yes, absolutely.
Very seriously.
And we can no longer afford to be a country where people turn out to vote even less than in India with all of the problems of poverty and illiteracy. We have to stop letting people make decisions for us and understand that the ballot box is the only place I can think of where the least powerful and the most powerful are equal.
We hope so.
Right.
Thank you, my dear friend. Take care of yourself in your travels. I know you're soon off to Australia and New Zealand. The paperback of the book is about to come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say its title.
My Life on the Road, and the paperback will have a new chapter called Secrets, because I cut out too much while doing the book. Anyway, so I've added a little bit to it and made a separate chapter, which is about farm workers' camps and sex trafficking and prisons and all of the things in this country that you have to search to find.
This is so you. I mean,
well, Robin, you well understand as a writer that you don't throw anything away.
Nothing. The cutting.
If you like it,
the cutting room floor is sacred. You sweep it all up and save it. And if you're completely obsessive compulsive, you file it.
Well, you are much better at that than I am.
Anyway, I'm so glad, and so we have a new paperback with new data in it coming out and a new chapter, and we have Woman, the series on Viceland.
Right.
Thank you.
Be a witness.
Be a witness.
Thank you for putting our words in the air and giving them wings. Thank you.
Much love. It's time for a short break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when we come back, we're going to visit the world of comics as redefined by women. And although it's comics, it's a very serious matter, so don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. My next guest, Regine Sawyer, started her comic book career primarily editing and transcribing comic book scripts, but then she started her own small press company, Lock It Down Productions Publications, Lock It Down for short, and she herself is a comics creator, a writer, and a driving force in Women in Comics NYC Collective International. Here's the world of comics as rewritten by women. Regine Sawyer, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You created this terrific thing, Women in Comics, the Lock It Down group, Women in Comics NYC Collective International. You started your comic book career in 2006. Tell us how you got into creating Women in Comics.
Well, I started Women in Comics back in 2012, inadvertently. A gentleman named Ray Felix, who is the coordinator and founder of Bronx Heroes Comic Con, asked me to moderate a panel on women in comics. And I was nervous at first because I had never moderated a panel before, but he said, you know what, you'll be fine, you'll be great. And I knew a few women in comics at the time, and he actually knew more than I did. And together we compiled our first panel. And after the panel, as well as during the panel, after speaking with the women, I realized that a lot of these ladies, although they had been in the industry for a very long time, they hadn't gotten the exposure that they should have had. And not only that, one of our panelists, Lisa E. Martinez, she had said that she never gets invited to things like this. She never gets invited to panels. Oh. And at the time, she had been in the industry for 13 years. Now she's been for 17. And she's drawn Iron Man, Black Panther, Daredevil, X-Men, DC New 52's Batgirl. She's drawn and done all these books, been a lead artist, and she often isn't invited to panels. It just struck me so deeply.
That's outrageous.
It's absolutely outrageous and horrifying, to be honest. And after which, we started just doing more panels throughout the city, throughout New York City. And before we knew it, people started asking us out of state if we would do panels there. Mm-hmm. And then we had our first art show in 2013, and then people started asking for workshops. And we started with 8 ladies. Now we have over 110.
Wow.
We're international. We're an international organization now. We have members in Denmark, Cameroon, France, England, the Philippines, Canada, and I may be missing a country. I'm not sure.
Wow!
But we're just expanding because there's a need.
Well, I'll say yes. This program has an international audience, so people abroad will be especially interested, as well as people in the United States. We'll give it again later, but let's give the websites where they can contact you to find out when the panels will be, or set one up, or ask for advice, or find out where to find comics by women. Give the websites.
Absolutely. My website for Lock It Down Productions is www.lockett, LOCKETT, down.com. For Women in Comics, it's winc.wix.com/Women in Comics NYC.
And if you just Google Women in Comics NYC Collective, it will come up. The link will come up. This is very, very exciting. I mean, because we've had, I grew up on Betty and Veronica in the Archie comics, and I loathed both of them. Neither one were my style, and they were no models for me to be a superhero. And then of course we had Wonder Woman, who is all very, very nice, and we're glad for Wonder Woman, but she's as white as snow. I mean, she couldn't get whiter if she were a ski run. And then finally along came Storm, who was fun, is fun, because at least she has temper tantrums like a good feminist. But basically comics has been a white boy's game, at least in terms of superheroes until very recently, right?
Yes, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, the industry is expanding where the mainstream industry is concerned. However, independent comics have always featured marginalized faces and people such as women, people of color, the LGBT community. We've always done that. Mm-hmm. Because we are all-encompassing community full of different types of people, and the independent community reflects that. The mainstream, they're just getting into doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they are trying to expand their horizons.
I'm sure that the more creative stuff is done by the indies than that.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely,
because it filters out to the mainstream. The mainstream copies, the creativity of the indies.
Exactly. They copy us, but we're the ones that originated.
So if I'm a mother and I have kids growing up, or I'm a kid for that matter, and I want to see myself as a black or brown little girl, or a little lesbian pint-sized girl, or where I would go to your website and be able to find comics that reflected my reality.
Absolutely, absolutely, because our members reflect all of those.
So
if you went to Women in Comics and you went to look for different authors, you would absolutely find them. If you come to our shows, we just had a Comic-Con this past weekend, and we had a lot of members and a lot of women outside of the membership that were vending. We also had workshops, and we had panel discussions with women talking about their work and how long they've been in the industry. We had female pioneers that have been in the industry collectively for 50 years.
Wow.
And we discussed race and sexuality and all of those things in the panels. And then we had the workshops where we showed people what we do and how we do it. And then you had the vending floor where you could actually buy the work. So we combined all of those things together. And we tripled our attendance this year. Last year was the first year that we had it. So it was really exciting. And it was great to meet people that said, like, I know this person, but I don't know that person. How don't I know them? They were so excited to see us and the product that we had. So we're everywhere, and the digital age is upon us. Digital books are available. Web comics are readily available, easy to get. People are also selling their books through their own websites. So it's definitely much easier to get your hands on diverse material, particularly from women and our organization, Women in Comics. And Women in Comics, we promote our members and to make sure that their product is much more readily available
this
for the public.
This is just wonderful. Take a minute before we have to go and say a word or two about your own work, because you have a various series as a comic book artist. If that is the term of art, comic book artist, yes.
Well, I'm a writer.
You're a writer.
I'm a writer. Yeah.
So you
I'm
don't
a writer,
and
the artists work for me.
So
I'm just the boss. I'm just the boss.
Just the boss. I love it.
I create the books.
You create the stories. In other words,
I create the stories. I write them.
One was called Ice Witch, and another was called Eating Vampires. I love it.
And the Rippers. Yes, and the Rippers.
And so you are the So one person creates the stories, and then artists realize it. And I didn't see. That's the process. If I'd been at the Comic-Con, the Women's Comic-Con, I would have learned.
Yes. Yes, because we did have a publishing workshop, and in a writing workshop, we talked about the process. Those are my series. The Rippers is my baby. I started writing the Rippers when I was in high school.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just kept adding to it throughout the years, and it wasn't until about 2000, like I said before, 2006, when I entered the industry. I had already started my career in in food. I'm a classically trained chef, and I've been a food
Wow.
manager for about 12 years right out of college.
Wow.
And I was just ready to do comics.
Something called Ice Witch gets my attention. Sounds.
Yes, Ice Witch is a spin-off of The Rippers.
Ah.
And it's about a young woman who's an assassin. She gets married, has a baby, and now the company is after her baby.
Oh, good grief. That's a mistake.
Yes, it is.
You're absolutely terrific, Regine. Thank you for your own work, and thanks for what you've done for women comic creators and readers, and so that little girls and little boys who should read about powerful little girls as well, have different kind of models to grow into. Again, it's www.locketdown.com, LOCKETT down. And if you just Google Women in Comics NYC Collective, it will come right up for the Women in Comics website. Thank you. And thanks for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And now it's time for our new little feature, We Won This. This is about Seattle. The city council there now has a 5-4 majority of women, and along gender lines, recently the city council rejected a land use deal that would have paved the way for a sports arena intended to help lure Major League professional basketball back to Seattle. The women on the council said that financial arguments had swayed them, giving over city resources for a project without any promise that an NBA team would come, and in fact, with recent comments by league officials that no new franchise was likely, made the arena terms questionable, and another location, they said, already owned by the city should be considered. Well, that sounds all very rational, but the resulting backlash was swift and vicious. Hundreds of email messages and social media posts attacked the female council members. Practically all the attackers were apparently men. The men said the women lacked intelligence and understanding of the importance of sports because they are women. One Twitter poster simply used a 4-letter graphic insult to define them. Another man said they should all kill themselves and rot in hell, and so forth. You know how online hazing can go, to put it mildly. So the mayor, Ed Murray, came to the defense of the women, and then that produced a flap because many people thought the women wanted to defend themselves. And in fact, finally, Lorena Gonzalez, the council member who cast the decisive vote and who also got the brunt of the hate mail, she made a statement and she thanked the mayor. She said, however, when we're dealing with sexism, we have to understand that we need to give women opportunities to lead and to stand on their own 2 feet, because that's what we already do every day. And while I appreciate the intentions to defend us, I would certainly have appreciated some consultation before the statements were made. Before her election, she worked as a civil rights lawyer for a decade in Seattle, defending women in workplace sexual harassment cases. She added, the fact that it was 5 women who tipped the vote to prevent this land use action from occurring just scratched the surface, I think, of what we know is a still, unfortunately, very, very strong sentiment of sexism out there. My hope is that the men who are engaging in this vitriolic behavior will understand that it needs to end. Well, I wouldn't count on that, but I hope we can count on tweeting our support. This can be our tweet of the week, and we can make their support national and not only in the Seattle area. You would tweet to @Seattle Council and also tweet to us at WMC Live. That's @Seattle Council and @WMC Live, to let these terrific women know that they had a principled stand and we're behind them. We won this, and let's be sure we continue to do so. It's time for another brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and when I come back, I'll be speaking with a young woman who has decided, together with other women, to do something about sexual assault on campus, to put tools to fight back in the hands of survivors. Stick with us.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again. Andrea Pino is Director of Policy and Support and co-founder of End Rape on Campus, which is an advocacy group for survivors of campus sexual assault. As a student, she was one of the primary writers and one of the 5 complainants in the 2013 Title IX and Clary Act complaints against the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and she, together with Annie Clark, then became a national leader in filing that kind of complaint. She's a primary subject in the 2015 documentary The Hunting Ground. Here's Andrea Pino. Andrea, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, congratulations on the book and on the movement that you created, End Rape on Campus, that itself created the book, and all the extraordinary work that you and your co-founder and co-author, Annie Clark, have done in terms of sexual assault and harassment on campuses. When you yourself experienced sexual assault and harassment at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and when the university itself did not support you, as the second betrayal, as is so often the case. And then talk about what happened then, when you began to fight back.
Yeah, so I was sexually assaulted my second year at the University of North Carolina, and I was a very involved student leader. I was involved in student government. I was involved in housing, and had just been hired as a resident assistant. And it's not that I didn't crawl in a fetal position, because I did. And I think that everyone's healing is very different. And there's some times that even today I still do.
Sure.
But I did, I was enraged by not just my own experience, but what I was hearing from fellow students.
Right.
And hearing that the university really didn't have any policies in place that were actually survivor-centered, and that the lack of awareness and the lack of accountability for both administrators and students who had either been accused or had been involved in the process was just simply not there. There simply wasn't a conversation. It simply wasn't a priority. And it was really through, meeting Annie, who was a senior when I was the first year, that I learned this had been happening for so many years beyond, just my time there at Carolina. And it was actually through my own research in my classes and through actually the assigned reading in my classes that I learned that Title IX was a gender equity law that went beyond just sports, and that actually was in place to guarantee an equal and safe education for all students. And it was when learning that we realized that sexual harassment and sexual assault were a violation of Title IX, because
Yes.
it created an unequal educational experience. And it was when piecing together those two facts that that we realized that we could take action. And when we learned that you didn't need to to hire an attorney to take action, that you could file a complaint and do so on your own without that assistance, we realized that it was time for us to take action.
Well, and take action you did. I mean, beautifully. I mean, because of that work that you and Annie did, students have successfully filed complaints against Swarthmore, Occidental College, University of California, Berkeley, Dartmouth, University of Southern Cal, Columbia, et cetera, et cetera. So you must feel proud of that.
Every day I'm more and more inspired by the resilience of students who are still on campus, because when it comes down to it, these are students just trying to be students, and activism really is a side gig in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. And, our organization, End Rape on Campus, has filed 30 of the complaints that are currently under investigation, but there are over 200 that are under investigation right now, and that list is ever growing, and we get more and more calls every day. So this is definitely not going anywhere, and as more and more students are learning what their rights are and are learning that they have the ability to come forward and the support, if they have it, those numbers are only going to get higher.
Oh, of course. We should give the website for IROC, for End Rape on Campus.
Yeah, so our website is endrapeoncampus.org, and we actually do 3 things. Our main priority is more direct service. So we are doing exactly what we did when we first started, when we were back at UNC, which is helping survivors learn their rights and learning how to file complaints. That takes up most of our time. But our 2 other efforts are on prevention education. We do a lot of education around the country, going to college campuses, teaching students their rights and teaching them about consent and healthy relationships. And our third effort is legislative efforts. I mean, we work really closely with Kirsten Gillibrand from New York, as well as state-by-state efforts. We recently just helped pass legislation in Virginia that is going to mandate healthy relationship and consent education in Virginia, of all places.
Yeah.
And we hope that this is going to be the trend nationwide.
And it will mandate what specifically?
So it'll mandate healthy relationship education. So in public schools that have sex ed, it's going to focus on what is consent, what is abuse, what is manipulation, what is gaslighting, and these are terms that teenagers never hear. And actually, we've heard from survivors that they didn't even talk about consent until they got to college and until after they had a sexual assault. So we hope that when students know what sexual assault is and what rape is and how that's different from consensual sex, we hope that these rates will go down. It's
so empowering to the kids, to the teenagers themselves. I mean, whether or not, and we would hope not, whether or not they are survivors or whether they become victims of a sexual assault, it's empowering to them. They're being equipped with tools for their life. I mean, it's fantastic. It's really, really good work. And out of all this then came the book, We Believe You, Survivors of Campus Sexual Assault Speak Out. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole goal of the book is actually to elevate the voices of survivors that we do not get to listen to. Unfortunately, despite the amount of coverage that this cause has gotten, it's still very much, a white female narrative. And it's always very much focused on, sensational details. We don't get to hear about who the survivors were before and who they are now and what they're doing every day.
Right.
And it was actually through Annie and my travels around the country that we started listening to these people who told us, I wish I would have been as brave as you. And we said, you are being brave. You're a professor right now. You are raising a kid right now.
Yep.
You are a nurse that's actually helping survivors go through their rape kit. There's all these everyday narratives that we don't get to listen to because there are so many survivors. So there are so many survivors all over every area of our society that are doing these day-to-day things that we just simply don't get to hear about. Because all we hear about are these small, sensational narratives, and we don't get to hear who these people are right now and what they're doing to really chip at this bigger issue of rape culture, which we call this everyday activism.
That's right. Well, I don't think it's coincidental that we don't get to hear, because if each case can be compartmentalized and if it can be sensationalized, and particularly if the woman is young and white, and it can always seem like an aberration rather than seeing it in the context of rape culture.
Absolutely. And I think what's even more astounding, Annie and I just came back from Manitoba, and just the sheer number of Indigenous women who are going missing or who have been found murdered, and it's just simply not news.
Yes.
It's not dissimilar from what we're hearing here, in the fact that there's blurry area as to how you can even prosecute on tribal land.
Right.
And just the sheer number of Native women who have been assaulted, whether within the tribe or by white folks that come into the area. And actually, the book is dedicated to a Native student named Faith Hedgepeth, who was a student when I was there at Carolina, who to this day, we have no idea what happened to her. We know that she was sexually assaulted and found murdered when I was a junior at Carolina. But, because she's a Native woman and because this just happens so often, she's been completely erased from the headlines. And I think, again, one of the main goals we have with this book is to put, you really paint the true picture of sexual violence, is that it oftentimes happens to women of color at way higher rates. Anyone could be a survivor. Anyone could also be a perpetrator. And that's actually what makes us uncomfortable.
That's right. Yes, the boy next door, the nice guy next door, precisely. We've had a number of guests on the show in the past from Minnesota and from that area around Winnipeg and Canada, where Indigenous women have been just vanishing. So I understand completely what you're talking about. And the book, because of the diversity of the stories, the Me Too's, It Happened to Me, You're Not Alone, You're Not Crazy, is just a tool that I think will sing in the hands of women who need to hear that they're not alone. And books go where organizers can't.
Thank you.
Again, the website is endrapeoncampus, all one word, .org. The book is We Believe You, Survivors of Campus Sexual Assault Speak Out. And my guest has been Andrea Pino. And thank you for the work that you've been doing, and continue doing it.
Thank you so much.
One last pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I hope you don't go anywhere, because I'll be right back with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back to some fighting words. Some people seem surprised that Donald Trump is actually the presumptive Republican Party presidential candidate. These people, largely Republicans, have effectively channeled their denial about climate change into their own race for the White House. How many times over these months have we heard GOP candidates and leaders chuckling, "Trust me, Trump will never be the candidate"? Well, apparently he will. It's up to the rest of the country, primarily the women, to make certain he never makes it to the White House. So how did we get here? Well, for one thing, the once sane Republican Party, as I've noted before, conjured up this monstrosity for decades by its rhetoric and legislation about foreigners, urban problems, welfare queens, and more. From Nixon's attempt to hijack the presidency through Gingrich's take-no-prisoners approach when he was Speaker of the House, from gerrymandering districts and impeding voting and the so-called Southern strategy that deliberately reinforced racism, to deleting the reproductive rights plank and the ERA plank from the Republican platform that was in Papa Bush the First's tenure, straight through to refusing to condemn or even disassociate itself from Trump's birther movement, or from Mitch McConnell's public vow to undermine President Obama at every turn. This has been a long time coming. And now, when the monstrosity rises and lurches about like Boris Karloff, these folks are shocked. Shocked. Oh, that shock doesn't stop some of the same people who swore Trump would never, ever be their candidate from now backpedaling faster than a gerbil on a wheel to endorse him. Well, they deserve what they got. But the nation deserves better. Yet the nation, including you and me, didn't take him seriously early enough. Because our political dialogue has been coarsened to the level of drunken toads belching at one another. Because celebrity culture is something we now routinely shrug at, as we shrug at the notion that reality shows are real or that news and entertainment are interchangeable, instead of boycotting their sponsors, or buying a token share or two in media corporations, going to stockholders' meetings, and raising hell. The media. The Fourth Estate, mainstream media, and the Fifth Estate, new and social media, both so crucial to informed discourse, have served the public badly. Partly this is due to the tech revolution, unstoppable, which facilitates cherry-picking news that you want to hear. Partly it's due to corporate media ownership that has blatantly celebrated how great the Trump circus is for ratings and thus for what they can charge advertisers. Partly this is due to the news cycle itself now, its rapidity and superficiality, and frenzy to scoop the story whether factually sound or not, because some version of it will already be wildfiring in the Twitterverse. So here we are. And here's what we do know. It's not the economy, stupid, because due to Obama, our economy was not only saved, but is improving steadily. It's not the evangelical zealots, because though some of their leaders are critical of Trump, the base is apparently quite happy to suspend its beliefs and abandon their boy, Ted Cruz, when a 3 times divorced, womanizing, foul-mouthed, bullying, former pro-choice, non-church-going billionaire comes along, promising them not heaven, but gold faucets in the now. And it's not, as Bernie Sanders would have it, a class struggle, because white working-class men, and some women, identify, bizarrely and against all their interests, with that same billionaire, the way some devout Christians send money from their pittances to megachurch swindlers. Here's a thought. There's really no such thing as closure. It's kind of a psychobabble word. Hurts, griefs, insults, injustices, bitterness, they don't vanish. They scab over, and we call that healing. But the scars remain, and it's perilous not to acknowledge them. The scar of conquest, of this very land, of indigenous peoples, still festering. The scar of slavery, still unaddressed, still postulating under systemic racism. The scar of a civil war waged less than 50 years after the Constitution was signed, with the greatest number of dead of any war in American history. The ongoing wounds and scars inflicted by the patriarchal family, encouragingly declining in numbers, but still dug into its authoritarian forms. Authoritarianism found to be the main identifier of the Trump voter. And oh my God, now, just when some people were exhaling that they soon would be rid of the first black president, now it's a woman running for the most powerful job in the world, which raises the scars livid again, ready to run fresh blood. So, a few simple truths. This is not the greatest nation on the planet, nor is it the indispensable nation, as some have called it. It is an ongoing, remarkable, fragile experiment, a little more than 200 years old, a sneeze, historically speaking. Think about Egypt, Greece, India, China, their millennia of histories. We're infantile compared to that. Or, to be generous, we are not fully formed in our brains yet adolescents, clumsy, well-meaning, touchy, moody, learning to drive, drinking too much, acting out all over the place. Vietnam, Central America, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. Frankly, the framers would be stunned and gladdened that the nation still exists at all, that the experiment still holds 200-plus years on. But this is a maturation moment. Time to grow the hell up country, and now. Time to use the constructive tool the internet can be. Go to factchecked.org or politifact.com regularly, or get their RSS feeds in your email so you can distinguish candidates' lies from accuracy, their promises from what's actually doable. Have your facts ready and argue, and don't get personal, and don't back down. Become engaged, or become even more engaged than you already are. Avalanche emails and letters to editors of newspapers and news websites. Urge them to practice real journalism, to be stubborn about that follow-up question, and to put Sanders, and especially Trump, through the same scouring scrutiny that Hillary Rodham Clinton has been subjected to for decades. Yes, and support the Women's Media Center, because fighting for accurate, fair, inclusive journalistic standards, that's why we exist. Every election, someone says, this is the most important election ever, and every time it's true. This country should have, as many developed democracies and republics do, automatic registration and mandatory voting via mail, online voting, and every other possible means to enfranchise our choices. And the federal government, not individual states with their biases, should legislate and ensure this. In the coming election, we have a chance not only to avert disaster and make history regarding the White House, but also to give its new occupant the wind at her back, with a progressive majority in the Senate and the House, and the court. The choice has never been clearer, and for a while at least, the choice is still ours. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMClive.com. There you can find the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes. And we're at iTunes worldwide. There you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Regina K. Scully is our founding sponsor. Julie Burton, Women's Media Center President, is executive producer. And I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.